It's chaotic. So if you walked into my class when they're either working on a team assignment or doing a team test, it's loud and there's a lot of talking and students have their notes out and they're talking to each other. And for me, it's really energizing. It's my favorite part of the whole class is talking to them and hearing them talking to each other and hearing them explaining things to each other and pointing out things on their notes. And it's really dynamic and you can see that the students are engaged in what they're doing. Whereas when I'm lecturing, it's very different. You can see them scrolling on their phones and they're much less engaged. It's really a dramatic difference.
The individual test, you're sitting there and you're trying to figure out the questions and you're trying to have a conversation with yourself in your head that doesn't always go exactly the way you need it to. But then when you get to that team test and you're kind of bouncing those ideas and those concepts off of your team members, it really helps the conversation, I guess, just flow a little bit better. And that conversation you were trying to have with yourself in your head, you get it out with other people and it just makes so much more sense. And you're like, oh, okay, I understand why this is the answer and why this is the wrong answer. So just helps so much with that flow of ideas.
During that time when they're kind of trying to reach an answer, they're asking more for because physiology is so piecewise, I guess, you have to understand this process to move to the next. They're usually missing a part of the process. They have the beginning, but they don't have one of the middle steps that they need to get to the end. Students aren't just asking for answers because they know on a test, Dr. Tomlin can ask for the reverse of what they were asked on an IRAT or their homework assignment. So I think that's a really, I guess that's a really big idea that students have learned this semester. I can't just memorize this and know this. I have to understand this inside and out, through and through. So I get a lot of questions about how to get to this idea, what mechanism am I looking at? What are these steps?
When it came to the team-based learning process, I actually really enjoyed it because it allowed me to kind of question my peers and see what thought process they had behind their answers, and I would kind of share my own. And when it came to that, I was learning from them, and I think sometimes they were learning from me, especially if we had different understandings of the material, and especially as we corrected each other and used our notes to kind of check our answers and whatnot. I think that helped the answer stick a little more in our heads, and I think in ways that it was we were almost quizzing each other and making sure we knew the information, and I actually really enjoyed it.
So I would definitely recommend professors implementing this active learning strategy into their classroom. I found that everything that I learned in physiology, besides just being a learning assistant, it has really stuck with me, and I really understand the whole world of, I guess, medicine a little bit better. And I remember that stuff. I can see how it plays out in the real world, whereas some of my other classes, I've just kind of been here's the information, but I'm not really sure how it applies to what I'm wanting to be doing as a doctor or as a nurse. But with physiology, this is what I'm going to be doing. I understand why I'm learning this, and I understand why this is so important, and I feel like it engages you in just a whole different way, which is why I think students have so much fun with the active learning process of it, because they are so engaged with something that they really like. Whereas anything else, you're just kind of, you're just a passerby. You're just passively sitting there waiting for class to end. This class, having that active learning and that group work makes class time just fly by, and you have so much fun doing it because you're figuring out things that you'd be doing in the real world.
So once I did implement this, yes, actually after the first semester, I did find a difference. So it is like comparing apples and oranges because the grade structure of a straight-up lecture class was different than with the team-based learning class because their group scores elevate them a little bit, but it makes up for their readiness assurance test scores tend to be lower than the summative test scores are. But Where I had a point of comparison that was the same was my cumulative final exam. And I give a very similar cumulative exam every year and every semester. And I've been giving that similar exam for many, many years. And the average has always been, within 1%. And it went up over 10% when I started the first time I did the team-based learning. And it stayed about that 10% higher since, and it's a cumulative exam, so it reflects what they've learned through the semester.